Thank you very much. What a kind welcome. First, I thought I was going to be talking about 20 people. So you surprise me, you flatter me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Dr. Rocha, thanks for your kind introduction, but also your hospitality and great briefings that I've had today. I'll admit to you that I probably could have found APL on a map if I went to MapQuest. But I knew of APL and what you do out here broadly. But today I had my eyes opened wide by a little more specifics. And I can tell you before I get into my comments here that what you are doing out here is absolutely essential to national security, particularly in light of the part of national security the U.S. Strategic Command is focused on. So thank you for that up front. Thank you for what you do. And I hope if you appreciate just how important what you do is to our country. If I could, I'll do a little advertisement since I've got the floor about U.S. Strategic Command, because I think there's a lot of confusion in a lot of folks' minds about what it is that U.S. Strategic Command does. If you're as old as me, you snap back to SAC when you hear Offutt Air Force Base, and you think Curtis LeMay, and you think the great nuclear deterrent mission that was run from there. And indeed, we still have that responsibility of providing the nuclear deterrent, command and control and operation of the nuclear deterrent force for the United States of America. But we do a lot more than that now. In fact, we do so much more. When I first got to the command, I kind of looked around and said, I was amazed. I said, wow, we're in charge of all this stuff. What's really most important that we have to do? And I could list off the 8 mission areas we do. They range from helping combat weapons of mass destruction, missile defense, information operations, better integration and utilization of ISR assets, space, cyberspace, nuclear deterrence. That's a lot of stuff. When I got to the command, I asked myself the question, if everything's really important in life, this is my philosophy, then nothing's important. So what's really important? What are our priorities at the command? And although each and every one of those mission sets is vitally important to us, the 3 areas where we have forces assigned to U.S. Strategic Command, where I, as the commander, can say, I would like to do this, and someone listens to me, which isn't a big problem in the military. Maybe a little more difficult in academia, I don't know. But they listen to the intent, and then they go work on solutions, and then they actually have forces assigned to them from the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines that they can give orders to and carry out a mission. And those 3 main areas of all the missions I listed are in space, cyberspace, and in nuclear deterrence. In each one of those areas, U.S. Strategic Command owns and commands and controls forces and can achieve effects. And in fact, what's interesting about each one of those areas, they're pretty agnostic to any lines that we might draw on a map to delineate borders. In fact, if you think about space and cyberspace, I'd say they're pretty agnostic to continents and oceans. And the whole concept of deterrence is as much mental as it is physical. So our principles really are global in nature. That's what kind of knits them together as a common theme. Our 3 main lines of operations, deterrence, space, and cyberspace. The other missions we have, I look at more as key enablers for the regional combatant commanders for missions that they have to do. We look for wedges between the regional combatant commands, so places on the maps where an adversary might look to take advantage of us where we're not integrated well together, for example, in missile defense. And we work those problems at U.S. Strategic Command. But I don't own a single missile defense asset when it comes to pulling a trigger and shooting a missile. I own a lot of the sensors because they're dual use for space. Same with ISR. I don't own any ISR platforms. I can't say, send U-2s here. They don't belong to me. Combating weapons of mass destruction, I have no forces that are going forward to fight the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. But all the regional combatant commanders do. And our job is to make sure that they're not disconnected in the way they plan and that we don't allow terrorists or other folks to take advantage of the seams between our organizational construct. Well, what I've learned today is the important things that you're doing in our three main lines of operations. And if I could start first before I tell you what I've learned today and emphasize areas that we need help in, I would first begin by reflecting back to December of last year and what became known as Operation Burnt Frost, which I think everyone in the room is probably familiar with. This was the intercept conducted by the Aegis system versus the NRO satellite that was going to re-enter the atmosphere sometime in the first week of March. And U.S. Strategic Command was asked to do something about that. What I learned today is just how big a role APL had in the success of that mission. And I cannot tell you how proud I am. In fact, it's been the proudest moment of my time at Stratcom to be a part of a team that literally in less than 2 months went from a telephone conversation. Actually, it was a meeting between myself and Scott Large on a different subject, where in December, mid-December, he said to me, you know, we got this satellite coming down early next year and I'm really worried about it. I said, Scott, satellites come down all the time. What's different about this one? He says, well, this one's got 1,000 pounds of hydrazine probably frozen in a tank on board that we're pretty sure is going to survive re-entry. To which I had one of those moments where I thought, you know, gee, I'm glad I'm not you. That's too bad, Scott. Have a nice day. That was maybe the first or second week in December. He says, I'm going to talk to Trey Obering at the Missile Defense Agency and see if there's anything they could do. Yeah, good luck. A week before Christmas, Trey calls me on the phone and he says, hey, do you know we're looking at this problem for Dr. Large? I said, yeah. He says, well, we're going to give it a hard look over the holidays. I'll give you a call between Christmas and New Year's. Sure enough, Trey to his word, calls me at my home between the holidays and he says, you know, we've been looking at this and I won't tell you we can do it, but so far we haven't found any showstoppers. And he said, what I need is a decision to move forward because everything from here on out is going to cost money. And nobody gave us money to do this. We do missile defense here. So that was right before January 1st. January 8th, we're in the Oval Office briefing the President and asking for a decision whether we should proceed or not. A month later, we're in the Oval Office briefing the President with a solution and how we can actually do this with a high level of confidence. In 2 months, we went from, hey, I got a problem, to solving the problem. And I would argue no other United States of America could do that. Pull together 16 different government organizations to include government and academia, and APL, I can tell you, was a critical part of this. Pull that technology together, pull that thought, operational expertise together, and execute that mission. And not just hit the satellite with an interceptor that I could carry under my arm, but hit a tank that stood about this high, 40 inches in diameter. Hit the tank with that little interceptor at closing velocities that we can't imagine. Multiple miles, tens of miles per second. That's pretty amazing. And you all were part of that foundation, that fundamental capability, that analytical capability, which allowed me to go into the White House and brief the President with confidence that, yes, sir, we can do this if you choose to do so. Thank you for that. You owe yourselves a round of applause, by the way. In the areas of nuclear deterrence, our big challenge in this area, in my view, a couple. One is just theoretical and mental, if you will. I'm not convinced that we haven't a little bit in this country, since we've been at war, essentially. I can speak for my parents' service, the Air Force. We've been in constant conflict since 1991. You know, when Desert Storm ended in 91, the Air Force stayed in Southwest Asia